Hey, my friends. Today's video is all about lesson planning, especially back to school lesson planning. How in the world do you plan lessons when you know you have so many procedures to teach for those first few weeks of school? That's what we're diving into, teacher friends. And today's video is sponsored by Erin Condren. Let's go. All right, my friends, to kick off our lesson planning, I've already set up a few basics in my teacher lesson planner. I have a couple of the Cool for School sticker books from Erin Condren, so I went ahead and added my name to the front. I'll get to all of those logs and charts at the very front later. You know how it is. When we're busy, we do the bare minimum right there at the beginning, but I'll get to it. So I have my calendar here. This is just showing a snapshot of the year. I have a few stickers there with important dates. And then I use the yearly graph section for my novel studies. But I do not read a novel with my students the first month of school. We just focus on back to school books. And speaking of those, I have a lot of small group instruction planned using our back to school books and activities. So that's the gist of setting my planner up. Now on to the seating chart. One of my favorite things about using Erin Condren lesson planners is that they have all these graph pages at the front of the novel. So I use that front of the novel. Lord have mercy, help me. At the front of the planner, not the novel. I use those graph pages to start my seating plan. And for the first few weeks of school, I like to have a U-shaped seating plan for my students. And here are some of the reasons why. I do not want my students in rows because they're looking at the back of each other's heads. That's a distraction. I really need them to focus on me because I have a lot of procedures to teach. I don't like my students at our round tables or using any type of flexible seating because that is also, that could be distracting. If they're already in small groups for that first week of school, they might talk. Wait, who am I kidding? They are going to talk, okay? Let's be real. They've had an entire summer away from one another. They're going to talk if I put them in groups. So no flexible seating or group seating. And I also have so many papers to pass out. We got to set up textbooks, workbooks, binders. I got to pass out all those forms from the office. You know how it is. We got emergency forms, on and on. The U-shaped seating is the best seating in my opinion. In my 13 years of teaching, I feel like this is the easiest for me. It's the best for them. I can walk around the center of that U-shape. I can see everyone's face. They're not looking at the back of one another's heads. They're looking at me. I can see them. I just think it's the best seating arrangement for the first few weeks of school. But it also depends on the layout of your classroom because some classrooms the flow does not go well for U-shaped seating depending on how your classroom is set up. So that's what I'm doing now in my lesson plan book is getting my seating chart ready. Looking over my back to school checklist to see what else I need to do. And now I'm going to move on to the monthly calendar spread. For this section of my planner, I basically just fill in important holidays, birthdays, things that I need to know, like fire drill day and things that I'm not excited to know about, but I need to know them, like staff meetings and grade level meetings. Yay, woohoo. All those important dates and tidbit information. This is just a snapshot. I just want to be able to glance at the month as a whole. I can't talk, excuse me. Glance at the full month at one time and be able to see report cards, progress report dates, those important tidbits. That's basically what this section of my planner is for. I want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Erin Condren. It is no secret that they make the best planners, not just teacher lesson planners, but also life planners as well, and student academic planners. You can customize your cover. I mean, they already have a wide selection to choose from, but the sky's the limit on what type of covers you want to have on your teacher lesson planner. If you already have a teacher lesson planner with a different brand, they don't just offer lesson planners. You can go to Erin Condren for accessories like stickers, markers, dashboards, ink pens, all sorts of planner accessories. I really love using these. They do help me stay organized, but it doesn't hurt that they are also super cute. So this is just an example of one of the teacher sticker books that you can grab from them. And you can grab whatever you need at a discount using their EC Insider. If it's your first time, you can use my referral link in the description box for $10 off your first order. We are ready to get into the nitty of the gritty with lesson planning. Oh yeah, baby. Let's dive right in. So, background. Most of my teaching experience has been 4th grade, language arts, and social studies. I teach 2 sections of students, and I share them with a co-teacher. We swap classes as if they're middle schoolers. But basically, she teaches math and science, I teach language arts and social studies. So I have to plan and teach the same lessons, but for 2 different groups of 4th graders. I hope that makes sense. My lesson planner is what you call the vertical layout. So I have 6 columns, and I like to divide those up based on the sections and subjects. So 3 of my columns I use for language arts, 3 columns I use for social studies, and I color code my sections. That's how I'm able to keep my lesson plans organized. And that's how I know, okay, I taught my section or my homeroom this lesson, and then I put the other 4th grade section that I teach in a different color. However, for the first 2-3 weeks of school, I am actually not teaching that much academic content. So I divide the planner up based on those 2 sections. Half of my planner is for the morning crew. The other half of my planner is for the afternoon crew. I organize my lessons with my co-teacher. She and I sit down and talk about, all right, these are the procedures and routines that we're going to have that are the same. So now you see me setting up my lesson plan book for that morning, those morning procedures that I need to teach with my homeroom class. And as the video continues, you will see me plan the afternoon lesson plans for the second group. As I already mentioned, my lesson plans for the first few weeks of school look so different than my lesson plans for the rest of the year. You may notice that I am not writing any standards. I'm not writing Unit 1, Chapter this, because I'm not covering that much academic content. The types of back-to-school activities that I'm doing are academic in nature, but they're mostly review academics. I just want students to establish procedures and build community, establish relationships. That's why you see a lot of games and about me type activities. By the way, most of what you see is available in my Teachers Pay Teacher store, Tanya G. Marshall, the Butterfly Teacher. I have a back to school section in my store, but feel free to let me know in the comments anything that you see me write in my lesson plan book that you are interested in or curious about, and I'll make sure to respond and get those activities to you. Now that you have seen me write my lesson plans for the first 2 days of school, since where I live, our first day starts on a Thursday instead of on a Monday. I've done my first 2 days of lesson planning for my homeroom, my main group of fourth graders. Those are my morning plans. And then I have my afternoon plans, which will be with the second group of fourth graders that I teach. And since we're starting on a Thursday, I'm also adding in my to-dos and pre-planning notes. So now that I'm focusing on the afternoon plans, I'm adding in some of those meetings that we have during pre-planning and some of the other to-dos that I need to focus on during those pre-planning days. And then I'll get to the lesson plans for my second group, which will still focus on procedures, relationship building, and those afternoon routines. Since I've mentioned back to school procedures so many times, let me give you some examples of the type of procedures that I go over with my students. We talk about things like going to the bathroom, what to do in your pencil breaks, where to turn in your homework and gather your paperwork. We go over class helper jobs, where to hang up your book bag and put your supplies. I even have an entrance procedures and exit procedures checklist that I keep on their desk. We go over all those detailed procedures for the first few weeks of school. If you are interested in learning some more creative ways to teach procedures for those back to school weeks, I have an entire blog post about this on my site, thebutterflyteacher.com, 10 fresh ways to teach procedures, with lots of gaming ideas and fun ways to go over those routines. I will have that linked in the description box below. And if you're interested in seeing another video about procedures and back to school routines, let me know in the comments below. Please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so that when I do come out with more content like that, you will be alerted and you'll know, okay, Tanya has a new video about procedures. Let me go check that out. As you can see here, I am continuing to fill in my lesson plans for those afternoon sessions or the afternoon class that I have with my students. And as you can see, more procedures, going to the bathroom. This is a lot of transition time because the group of students that I have in the afternoon, I get them from lunch. So my co-teacher gets my homeroom at lunch, I get hers. And so I have to do a lot of, how do we walk down the hall? What do we do at the bathroom? What do we do when you're coming into the classroom after lunch? Where do you put your lunch bag? Where do you get your supplies since you're coming to me from your homeroom teacher's class? All of those nitty-gritty details. I like to throw in a brain pop video because basically what I'm going to do with my students is have them doing something engaging while I am monitoring what's going on at the bathroom. And thankfully my classroom is near the bathroom, so I try to stand in my doorway or close to like where I can see the students that are in my classroom but still take a glance at the students down the hall. I mean, you know how it is. We teachers have to multitask. So that's the plan so far. I also love using Plickers. I have a full blog post about Plickers as well. It's free, but that's a fun way to review procedures. Really, it's a fun way to review anything. I use Plickers for a lot of different things in my classroom. So I'm just adding all of those detailed notes into my afternoon lesson plans. When possible, I like to do 2 weeks of lesson planning at a time, which I know that can be very challenging sometimes, depending on what's going on in your life, depending on how much extra work that you have as a teacher. But for the back to school season, I'm just in a better position to go ahead and think ahead to what's coming up the next week. And as you can see with my planner, I am going to go ahead and start including just a little bit our academic content. And like I mentioned, I teach language arts and social studies. So with my lesson plan book being the vertical layout, I put my reading and writing together. and then I put my vocab and grammar together, because those are the parts of language arts that I like to start off with for our first full week back at school. And then I am going to go ahead and add in my social studies content, my literacy centers, my social studies, and social studies centers. So you'll see me add that here, and that's what I'm going to focus on now. But you'll notice that I still have procedures and get to know you back to school activities, even with the academic pieces now being added into my plans. People ask me all the time, why do you spend so much time on procedures? I mean, don't you need to start taking grades? Don't you need to start with assessments? Number one, I need my students to be independent. And I have found over the years, most of the behavior problems that I've encountered really have to do with students during transition times not knowing what to do and being idle. Early finishers who are just sitting there, they don't know what to do, or students who are wandering around the classroom because they're kind of lost. I use a lot of literacy centers and social studies centers, and I allow my fourth graders to use choice boards, which is a highly independent task. So for all of these different activities, I need my students to know what to do next without me having to spoon feed them directions every 5 minutes. I learned how to start my school year with procedures using a book called The First Weeks of School by Harry Wong. I will link that in the description box below. No, I'm not being endorsed to talk about it. My mentor teacher introduced me to that book my second year of teaching. It has changed my life because every school year I refer to it. And in the book, his system, this program, it basically encourages teachers not to assume that your students know what to do for all of the daily tasks. Something as simple as, okay, students, line up. You think, okay, they're fourth graders, they know how to line up. You might have totally different expectations than the behavior or actions they give you. So even that becomes something I add to the list. I model for my students. This is how I expect you to line up. So with all those details, it does take 3-4 weeks to weave in those procedures, but I promise you they are worth it. Okay, my friend, I really hope that you found something that was helpful in this video. If so, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. I'd love to have you come back. Thank you so much for your time.